All right, I see you found your way to part 2. So what we're going to be doing here for the next 10 minutes, going forward from where we were at before with our service document interrogation, is we're going to start creating objects. So the first object that we're going to create in a repository is going to be a folder. That way we have something that we can create other fileable or containable objects inside of. If I was going to show you how to do that inside of the Firefox connector, it would be just a matter of right-clicking and saying new folder. But that would not help you at all if you're developing a client, which is why we're doing this at a much lower level. So the way that we're going to do this is with the poster tool. So jumping back here to our service document, we're going to take the URL for the root folder, for the root collection, excuse me. And I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to bring up Firefox. And down here, once you've installed the poster tool, you're going to see a little yellow button down here. Hopefully this is on your screen. This says Open Poster. I'm going to select that. And here we are in Poster. I'll try to fit it on your screen. And we're going to put the URL of the root collection here. And then we're going to jump over to text document that I have, a sample of, this is the XML that we will post to tell the CMIS server that we want to create a folder. Now, before I do that, let me just really quickly run through this. So this is an XML document. It's an entry. We're going to just, I'm going to skip over this because this is just introduction of the namespaces that we're going to be using. Here we have the atom title of the folder that we're going to be creating, and I'm just going to give it the name J's test folder. And then here is the beginning of the CMIS object, and there's really nothing in it except a property bag. This is the properties collection with a single property in it. So for the most basic type of folder where all I want to do is specify the name, which can be done a couple of different ways, but setting it in the title is probably the most common. The only other thing that we need to tell the CMIS server is what exactly is it that you want me to create. Is it a document? Is it a subclass of document? Is it some type of relationship? Or is it a folder or a subclass of folder? So in this case, we're saying, okay, this is a property definition ID, and its name is CMIS folder. So that's the root type of CMIS folder. So I'm going to take this XML, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to put it into the payload section here. Now we have to set our content type to be the appropriate type as per the spec. So we're going to be setting it as an atom plus XML type equals entry. And we're going to set the HTTP verb to be a post. So we're posting this new folder object to the root folder, which translates logically into I'm creating a folder in this folder. So if I do submit, I'm going to get a response back, and let's just take a look at this real quick. This is the XML describing the new folder that we just created. And actually, before we look at this, let's jump back to that tool. And let's refresh. Now we can see here we have J's test folder, which is empty. We're going to look at it in its raw form as well, but this just shows that the view that we have through a real CMIS client is showing the same thing, that folder just got created. So here inside the folder, there's a couple of things that we're going to want to note. There's going to be a property bag of all of the metadata, all the properties that are in this particular folder. Last modification date, the object ID. Now this is the one that I want to point out here. This is the object ID of the new folder that we have created. So that's a handle that we can use with that URI template that we discussed earlier. And I'll show you how to do that later. Another way to retrieve this is to go down and find the self link. So this is an actual URL that we could do an HTTP GET on this URL, and we receive the same information that we're looking at right now. So when you post a new folder, the response back is that folder object in case you want to examine it for any reason. But it's self-describing. If you wanted to find the URL for this folder from the folder object itself, you'd go here to the self link. Now say we wanted to now in turn get a feed of everything that was in that new folder. So if we look through all of the links on this folder that we just created, we're going to see a couple of interesting ones. The one that we're looking for here is the down link. And there's going to be two down links. One of them is of type feed, and that's the one we're going to be looking at here in a moment. But the other one is, so this is a flat feed of all the children of this folder. Now this other down link that has a different type, CMIS tree, that's the same thing except it's a hierarchical view. So it includes the children and the children's children, etc. And you can specify the depth that you want to recurse. But since this type here is a type that is recognizable by Atom viewers, if I take this URL and I paste it into a browser, let's just create a new tab here. I'll put that. The browser is going to interpret this as an Atom feed. And you can see here it's an empty feed because there's no documents in that folder yet. But we're going to place one there in just a moment, and you can see we'll just keep referring back to this feed. This is another way to manually verify that something is created, is just by looking at the feed, assuming that it's something that's filed. Okay, so now that we can see this feed, we're going to real quickly create a document in this same folder. So I'm going to copy this URL for this the flat feed for the new folder that I created. We're going to jump back into Poster, and I'm going to paste the URL of this new document we've created into the URL that we're going to be operating on. We're going to set our verb to post, and we're going to put in here some XML for a new document this time. So it's pretty much the same as before. We're setting the title. This time it's going to be Jay's Test Doc. Set a folder. And we're going to have a property bag here, and this time the property definition object type is going to be set to document as opposed to folder. Now on this repository we might have subclasses of document, with various names, whatever the administrators have created. But we know that CMIS document's present because we've looked at the metadata. We're going to discuss metadata later, so I'm jumping a little ahead, but just assume that you know that CMIS document is there. Always should be. And we're going to do this post. And now we get back our first document. So if we jump over to our feed where we were just looking and we refresh that feed, now we see there's a single doc there that is present. And if we go back to our poster response, we can look through all of the properties on this document. And if we go down to the links, we'll see things like the self document if we wanted to retrieve this doc again. And if we wanted to look at the content, now notice we didn't send any content. We just created this document without any payload, so it just has metadata. But you can see here there's an edit media link. Now that's the stream that's associated with this particular doc. So if we take that URL and we try to retrieve it, we're going to get back a response that indicates that there's something wrong that's not there yet. So let's go ahead and do that just so you can see. Create a new tab here. You can see here that's an invalid content element. So what I'm going to show you how to do next is create a document with some content, perhaps a JPEG or some text, and show you that there's a couple different ways to do that. But that'll be the next part that we'll cover, and it looks like we're almost out of time. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this one, and I'll see you in part 3.